Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today, the heart longs for what it longs for, and my heart longs to review an episode of The Simpsons. Specifically, the one titled The Bart Wants What It Wants. Obviously a parody of the poem The Heart Wants What the Heart Wants, or I think it's actually a famous line from literature. Either way, my heart now wants a co-host to bail me out of this intro. So how about the one that is here every week, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
Well, if you're watching on the video feed, I thought I was dying. You were about to not have a co-host at all. I was busy.
I wasn't on the video. I was looking for my script. You all right over there, champ?
Yeah. I stopped coughing with enough time to turn the microphone back on. So, that would have been really
I like
the
idea of like holding up like a sign, like "Help me," and you're like doing like the choke symbol, and I'm just rambling on about this episode of The Simpsons from 2002.
You would keep doing that. I mean, that's also what Miles does, like in video games. If you're ever in a team game where like you can be downed, but you can get back up and be revived, you got to tell Miles that you're down because he'll never figure it out. So
I 100% am not paying attention to your ass. I'm looking for people to kill. If you die, I feel it's on you to tell me about it.
But if I can't be alive to tell you, how would you know? Anyways, we're getting off topic here. We're here to talk about The Simpsons, not Miles's addiction to himself. So let me throw it back to him so we can get started. The man, the myth, the moon maiden. It is Miles.
It is me back again, man. Actually, I'm just now going to sidetrack this whole conversation because we need to make the announcement. We are moving to vocal.com, not to be confused with getvocal.com, which like none of you watch on anyway, so I don't know why I make this announcement. But if you're like, hey, where's that place that we can go and interact with these guys while they record their show? VOKL.com is where that is going to be starting very, very soon. Not because we are proactive people. In fact, we have waited till the very, very last bit of deadline we have where they're like, no, seriously, guys, we're shutting these servers down, so you can't record here anymore. And we're like, well, we kind of like the empty office space. Like, we just show up and no one bothers us. It's great.
Perfect scenario.
There's also nobody to answer emails. So, it's both a blessing and a curse. But if you want to interact with us while we record the show live, if you watch the episode and want to add your 2 cents or whatever, vocal.com/bestdarndiddly. Again, it's VOKL. So yeah, just note that if you listen and all the other places where like the majority of our like 100 listeners listen, then you don't have to worry about it. It won't affect you at all. But live people,
affect Movie Matthew,
100%. He's actually with us now, but he already knows. In fact, I think he might have been the one that are like, dudes, like they're pulling the rug out from under us in a few weeks. So yeah, Movie Matthew, you're a dude. You know what's up. Vocal.com/bestdarndiddly. Get over there and make an account and have fun. It's a pretty cool little service. So anyway, enough about that. We're going to talk about The Simpsons like we have regardless of where we've chosen to record in the past. This week, we are talking about the episode The Bart Wants What It Wants, which originally aired in February 17th in the year 2002. We get the chalk gag, the giving tree is not a chump, beg to differ. And the couch gag, and this one kind of surprised me, and it kind of affected me more than I realized, because I do feel like it's an end of an era. An end of an era.
That sentence was the end of an era, too.
Yeah, that was true, yeah. Arguably the most prolific couch gag, arguably the most famous couch gag, the circus, the kicking line. The thing where they just needed to kill a bunch of time back in the Al Jean and Mike Reese era when they were together. The circus couch gag for the final time, according to IMDb, is this episode, which is just wild to think about. Like, yeah, they've used it so many times. And when I think about couch gags, that's the one that comes to mind, though. Admittedly, my new favorite is still the one from a few episodes ago where they actually jump out of the sailboat into their own living room. And it turns out they basically, I don't know, did like a Inception type of thing where they jumped from their own painting in their living room into their actual living room. It was wild, and I love that one. But if I had to rank them, I mean, like the circus one is easily one of the like heavy hitting, most popular and favorites of all time.
I remember on like syndication reruns that I would get sick of seeing it after a while. Like you look for the couch gag, and when it's that one, you're like, okay, I got like 20 minutes to kill until this gets done.
I think I agree with you from back in when I was a kid watching, but I think there's part of me as an adult that just like I cherish it more. I don't know if that makes sense. There's a nostalgia to it.
I also think you didn't get the concept of Inception too, but we'll talk about that on another podcast.
That was I was like, that's like jumping out of dreams, but like there, you know what I mean? It's like breaking like the rules of reality, essentially.
There you go. Okay. I saw your train of thought.
Honestly, you know what? It would be more accurate to say like the newest Matrix, because I think they jump in and out of mirrors in that one, but it's at least a wall hanging square object.
I've tried watching it twice and I've fallen asleep in it both times, which is hard for me to fall asleep in a movie.
Interesting.
Maybe one day.
Interesting. Well, the actual episode starts out with the Simpsons racing their car as they're being pursued by a helicopter with the Olympics Games logo on it. They're shouting at Homer, "Give up, Mr. Simpson. We know you have the Olympic torch."
God's sakes, Homer, give them back their flame.
No, the Olympics have preempted my favorite shows for the last time.
You can always find your favorite shows next month.
You wait till next month. You wait till next month.
Every 4 years.
And this whole entrance and the joke at the end were largely just created because the Simpsons staff knew that they were going to be airing during the Olympics. So they decided to write a funny gag to open the show that they just, would pair up essentially just to more or less be the cold open, if you will.
Yeah, we're gonna have way too many stand-up jokes in this one, I feel like, Miles.
Yeah, by the way, man, I'm gonna pause real quick. I just want to make sure not to let anybody know that I'm performing stand-up comedy this weekend, because it would be really embarrassing if anybody came to a show. All right, we can hit on pause now.
Especially if they weren't ready for new age like weed humor and things like that.
Yeah. I'm shockingly the first stand-up comedian ever to tell a weed joke. It's a pretty big honor. Arnold, I don't know why. It's a pretty big honor.
Lorena Wolfcastle.
No, you know what? I'm already talking about stuff from the commentary, so let me go ahead and list that out as well. This commentary featured Al Jean, Max Cross, John Frank, Tom Gamble, Steve Moore, Tim Long, Matt Selman, Joel Cohen, Mike Placino, Bill Freiberger, and the voice of Milhouse, Pamela Hayden. This was her first commentary, they mentioned. And as you can probably tell, I just listed a ton of names, which sometimes does lead to less informative commentary track. But I will say this one may be an exception, because while there's definitely lots of like them just, doing gags and laughing and having fun, there was also a really like big wealth of information that they did share in this episode. And something that was kind of interesting is Pamela Hayden shared something that actually shocked Al Jean. Like, he just didn't realize that was the case, which is, I think, an impressive feat when it comes to anything Simpsons related.
That's quite the feat. I also wanted to point out, Miles, that Ian Maxtone Graham was a producer on this episode. Yeah, I read the opening credits, punk. I still couldn't figure out who the writer of the episode was, though.
Everyone's a producer on this show.
Yeah, I know. I was like, where's the written by part? I don't see it anywhere.
And surprisingly, it does come up kind of quick, and it's because there's so many producers. If you're not paying full attention, it's easy to miss, but it's there. This one did start out, though, with them asking Pamela about her history of how it, like, essentially how she came to be Milhouse. And it all started in between the Tracy Ullman show, but before the Simpsons cartoon started airing itself, when they created that partnership with the Butterfingers candy, which has been weird how much Butterfingers has been a part of like the commentary tracks and the episodes for like the last 3 or 4 episodes. It seems like
they did all those recordings on the same day, so it just happened to be on there.
That is absolutely possible. Do not get me wrong, but I do think it's interesting if that were true. I think that they would have talked more about the chalkboard gag that they did last week that they didn't mention at all. So I actually disagree because of that information. I think that it is more of just a coincidence that it things keep coming up around this time. And admittedly, it was probably a much bigger deal in the office at that point, like in the writing room, because it was actually happening live at the time that these commentary tracks were being recorded.
So somebody incepted the idea of a Butterfinger joke, and they thought
there you go. Yeah, they incepted it by jumping out of a picture frame into another reality. That's the lore of that movie works. But so Pamela Hayden, she auditions for this cartoon commercial where she's going to be Bart Simpson's best friend, and literally they're just looking for somebody to. I'm sorry, it wasn't even going to be his best friend. It was just going to be somebody in the cafeteria with him. Because they just needed somebody for him to talk to. So they wanted to like Simpsonize this person and create this kind of geeky character. And Pamela Hayden goes to this read for this and ends up doing her still to this day Milhouse voice. And sure enough, she gets the part. And Al Jean was just so surprised. He was shocked that it came from the Butterfinger commercial and not either the show or the Tracy Ullman show. But when they did in fact create The Simpsons, they obviously wanted to give Bart somebody to interact with outside of his family and parents.
So thank you, Butterfingers.
I guess so. Yeah.
I might also. I mean, he's so annoying, but he's supposed to be. So I guess it's all okay.
Milhouse is supposed to be annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that as well. I mean, he's definitely, I don't know if annoying is the right word. I think
the last few seasons he's been getting quiet. I'm just giving you the real talk here. He's becoming a little punk, Miles. And another thing about Milhouse, he must, like, off camera, must be a very charming person with the ladies because he gets a new girlfriend like every season and a half or so. So you got to know what he's saying, man. He had a little bit of misplaced confidence in this episode, but it was okay.
He just wants to find somebody who will watch him dive, Richie. That's all he's looking for, and he wants him to promise.
Take that plunge, Milhouse. Take that plunge.
So after we get the Simpsons giving up, I think Marge literally grabs the Olympic torch from Homer and just tosses it up to them. And the pilots are so entranced by the beauty and like the power that flame represents that they forget that they're flying a helicopter and they end up crashing at Hillside. They aren't hurt miraculously, but the Olympic flame has been extinguished, and they are very visibly upset by it.
You get a really long no from the main pilot. Like really, really long.
Homer has already lost interest in the Olympic torch and has grown bored, and luckily drives right by a school fair. So it's at like the fancy school that we've never seen before. Neither is Lisa. She's actually a little bit both shocked and I guess appalled or annoyed or frustrated because she's like, Springfield Preparatory School? Dad, you told me there were no private schools in Springfield.
But knowing about it would make you want to go here.
And we just get like the absolute like most cliche version of every private school that you've ever seen. Very snooty people. Everybody, like, I think the headmaster's wearing a monocle for some reason.
Well, he smacks Homer on the wrist and say, monkeys point when Homer's pointing at stuff. And monkeys cry too, Miles. So they're not very nice with the Simpsons family.
I like this sequence where Marge is just very impressed by the beauty of it all. She's like, this campus is so lush and verdant.
Yes, you probably recognize it from the film Calling All Co-Eds.
And you wouldn't think that Calling All Co-Eds would be a movie that Marge was really into, but she gets immediately excited and does the monkey point that Homer just did. Oh, is that where Boozer drank the pee?
It's one of the places.
And you can tell this teacher hates this so much that this is the part that people remember, and she has to deal with that probably more than a few times.
Yeah, so Springfield's got a ton of elementary schools, apparently, because last season we also had the Frankie Muniz school, the West Springfield on the east side or wherever it was. I don't know. Watch it.
There's a ton of education happening in Springfield, that's for sure.
You wouldn't think so from the outside looking. Oh, well.
While Homer both finds and destroys a bounce house that leaves a bunch of children disappointed, Lisa is longing for another life, basically. She's walking around looking through the windows and is just blown away. And even Principal Skinner is there, and she's like, oh, wow, this school has everything.
I know. Doesn't it just honk you off?
Skinner is like legit mad about like the fact that this school is so much nicer than his, and Lisa is legit shocked that they have a periodic table that has 250 elements.
And our school boards cut us back to 16. All of them lanthanides.
I like the idea of like they're studying for their like biology class, and they're studying the periodic table. That might be chemistry, but either way, they're studying some sort of science that the periodic table is required for, and all they have to do is memorize one. That would have made that test a lot easier back in school, is all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Also, I think it's really dumb that as a society in general, we test kids to like learn the periodic table when we have periodic tables to show us those things. Like we can instantly acknowledge and look up any information from that table we need. Why is it pertinent to memorize those things? Anyway, that's just a whole other rant for me to go.
There's on. Miles's mile-long rants of the week.
There you go.
It's a good bit now. We'll keep it going.
You know, we could get equipment like this through a bond issue.
Here's your bond issue. Huh!
He throws a cinder block through the window, and then he just starts raiding the supplies, essentially. He jumps out, and he has a cello and like a giant human doll.
Quick, take these.
Principal Skinner, you're just stealing. That was Marge for some reason. Lisa's Marge came out.
It happens. Welcome to Dick Cheney's America.
So this joke right here is yet another example, something that I've been personally kind of fascinated with since the start of this season. I brought up at our finale spectacular last season that I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes that occur because of 9/11, and this being the first season to air post 9/11 specifically. And sure enough, this joke was originally written in the script as Welcome to George Bush's America, but at this time, it was just very much, not like forbidden, but very much frowned upon to do any jokes at George Bush's expense, essentially at all, just because of the climate of the world at that time, with him being our country's military leader at a time when the military was doing some things that were it turns out pretty shady. We find out 20 years later, but that's also another mile-long rant I could go on.
What, a president did something possibly illegal and has records of it that might need to be looked at? An
American president? You don't
this
say,
day
sir.
And age?
Yeah. Another great example of this, just one of my personal favorite shows that that's too strong a statement. Let me rephrase that. One of my favorite shows that was directly affected by 9/11. It was a show that came on Comedy Central. It was by Matt and Trey, the creators of South Park. It's called That's My Bush. And it was literally an All in the Family style sitcom parody, but set in George Bush's White House. It was hilarious. It's one season. You can still find it on DVD. And it very much took a lot of not like really heavy political swings, but just almost like sitcom silly predicaments. Like imagine George W. Bush, but if he was portrayed as like Fred Flintstone, essentially, complete with like wacky neighbor. Only they are tackling very big issues like abortion and the death penalty. So it was a wild show, and it was canceled not because it was not popular. It was canceled because the climate of America at the time was not a place to be doing this type of parody, even if you are Matt Parker and Trey Stone.
Wait. Is that their names? Or is it?
Did I say it back? Did I say it backwards? My bad.
I do that all the time, honestly. That's why I caught it.
Yeah, their names are very interchangeable. I actually like to think of them as four people, all with different names. So it doesn't really matter what order you put them in. And that would also explain how they're able to pull off such a workload.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, after visiting Dick Cheney's America, we cut back to Marge, who's visiting the Frou Frou buffet, where nearby Cletus and Brandine are doing a Q&A with Wolfgang Puck.
Look, Brandine, it's Wolfgang Puck. Mr. Puck, you make the only grub what satisfies my gut worm, I swear.
Try my... I don't remember what accent he has, I'm not going to lie, but it's an accent. Try my Rice Krispie Squares. They're wasabi infused with a portobello glaze, and you can
apparently
find them
he's
at the
Mario.
airports.
So, with all apologies to Wolfgang Puck.
No, that's exactly what it sounds like. Marge are just M&Ms, and I do love that he's like, with M&Ms? Now that's what I call a fusion. I could sell them on the internet. Mwah. To the Puckmobile. Legitimately, I read what I don't know what I'm trying to say. I no longer need to have that whole interaction. I just nailed that Wolfgang Puck impression. That's spot on, exactly what he sounds like.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe they're training you to sing on stage.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. But yeah, I do love that he's just blown away by the idea that Marge is like M&Ms and Rice Krispie Squares. And like, how did I not think of that? It's amazing.
Yeah.
We then catch up with Bart, who is at the bumper car tent, and these are no ordinary bumper cars. They are all modeled after very expensive rides. And actually, according to IMDb, we see a Porsche 911, a Jaguar XK8, a BMW Z3. Bart himself is driving a Mercedes 280. The car he crashes into is a Lexus LS400 IS300, which has so many letters and numbers that you know that thing's expensive. And finally, a Rolls-Royce limousine and an ambulance, of course.
Yeah. But none of the kids are hitting each other.
They're literally driving around as politely as can be until Bart turns his Mercedes symbol into a targeting system, and he drives right into another car.
Which, let's be honest, these rich kid snobs would be running each other over.
You would hope so. Yeah, I mean, they'd probably have the poor kids running around with no cars at all.
Yeah.
Just running them over.
Welcome to Cheese America.
Yeah. When they do collide, actually, a what's it called? A airbag pops out of the bumper car, and then they have an ambulance come and carry him away. Homer
ensues.
Everybody's getting into shenanigans over here. Even Lisa's technically, assisting in a crime. But Homer is getting bored once again, so he decides to play a prank on Flanders at the silent auction, and he secretly bids $50 and signs Flanders' name, only to find out that the auction was for a $100 bill, which Flanders ends up winning. And immediately decides he'll donate it all to the orphanage, which makes Homer even more angry. Finally, Lenny and Carl are even in on the fun as they're participating in the ring toss, but instead of bottles, they're actually tossing rings over microscopes. And they both actually win one and are very excited because it's going to help them in their research.
Yeah, research.
And then they both immediately start treating them like little toy swords and fighting with their microscopes. It's
and you even get the clanging of sword sounds when they're doing it.
Clink, clink.
It is the best use of microscopes I've ever seen in my life. What else do you
it's pretty fun. I can't imagine a more fun way to use a microscope. A telescope, maybe, but not a microscope. So we see that there is, even in rich society, school bullies. In this case, we meet our guest star for the episode who is being bullied by 3 other girls until Bart actually busts out his slingshot and scares them away. I said 3 other girls. One of them they're 3 male bullies.
And does he say, hey, Frank, drop the kid's pack? He's like, it's Frankerton Hopkinson.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Exactly.
And they have to retreat to the Hamptons.
Greta is our guest star. She's voiced by Reese Witherspoon is what I'm trying to say. Legally Blonde, which is kind of cool.
Oh wow, yeah. You were so brave to take on all those bullies.
Those weren't bullies. That's a bully. And we see Nelson as we pan out, and Nelson is literally beating up a butler, saying, "Hey, butler, stop buttling yourself."
Would that I could, sir.
Poor butler, dude. Just then, though, we see none other than Rainier Wolfcastle approach Bart and Greta. Greta's not phased at all, but Bart is starstruck.
Time to go, Greta. Your mother's custody starts at 1800 hours.
Your dad's McBain?
I play many characters. McBain, Officer McVengeance, Sergeant Murder, and I was a voice on The Frasier.
Greta invites Bart to come over for dinner as long as it's okay with her father.
Come, we play Uno. I chase you with hose, no biggie.
Wow, cool. I guess we're leaving too. And he looks over to see that Homer and Marge are trying to pry Lisa off of the bars of this boarding school or this preparatory school, and she doesn't want to go. No, I belong here, please.
Don't worry, honey. We can't afford this now, but when it's time, I promise my darling daughter can go to the finest school there is in South Carolina.
Which upsets Lisa even further. She clings on tighter. She's like, I will not be a gamecock.
You will too.
Rat.
Go get out.
No! And Lisa being pulled away from the school of her dreams is the way we end our first act at 5 minutes and 19 seconds.
Normal for the last few weeks.
Yeah, pretty normal, short first act, which it seems to be that's the case a lot of times when the first act has almost nothing to do with the rest of the episode. They're like trying to conserve as much time for the other two.
I feel like the last few weeks I've had trouble figuring out where the actual act breaks are. If it weren't for like the commercial break, I wouldn't know where the act breaks are, basically.
Like the fact that the screen goes black is a big clue.
Exactly. But I remember a few weeks ago, I feel like that there was like more than 2 points where that happened. And so it was a little confusing to me. And I guess that's, when you know that's the formula, if you're getting confused by where the acts are, I guess that's good storytelling. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or they conditioned us for 7-minute breaks and now we're, free of that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting whenever the times are all over the place, but it seems like consistently it's been like 5-8-8 recently.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little disappointed that they didn't talk more about Drew Barrymore on the commentary. They had nothing bad to say.
Why would they talk about Drew Barrymore? She was like from a season ago.
Yeah, that's true, because I thought that would be fun if they were like on Reese Witherspoon's episode. They talk about this other popular blonde actress at the time. Yeah, Reese Witherspoon. They all said that she was great.
While I was watching the show, I go, wait, Drew Barrymore was already a guest star on here. It sounds just like her.
Dude, I literally wrote Drew Barrymore in my notes. That's why I just said it. I'm just reading off my notes right now, and I literally wrote Drew Barrymore down. So
we gotta apologize.
We
got to apologize to Wolfgang Puck and Reese Witherspoon and Drew Barrymore now.
We're going to go after all the celebrities. That's our new focus moving forward. We might not even accurately review Simpsons episodes anymore. We'll get close, but as long as we insult the celebrity guests, that's going to be a successful podcast.
Celebrity slams.
That's it. Yeah, so Reese Witherspoon was great. They liked working with her. They were all shocked at how young she looked. That was really the only big takeaway. But unfortunately, that pretty much conversation quickly just kind of got lost, and they, were doing some bits and whatnot, which is fine, but doesn't inform me on how the experience with working with Reese Witherspoon was.
Fair enough. We'll assume she was a delight.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption, actually.
Like Drew Barrymore.
For sure. I'm going to delete some of these notes because I have 2 things out of order that's bothering me, and that's going to just make my life easier and say the next 20 minutes or so. So, I'll thank my past self in the future. Getting into our second act, Bart is getting ready to visit Greta's house for the first time, and Homer's giving him a little bit of advice on how to deal with women. For instance, don't give them nicknames like Jumbo or Boxcar. And always get receipts because it makes you look like a business guy.
And they got little Barty all dressed up with the suit and everything right now.
He's getting fancy to go impress his girlfriend over here.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a moment that I thought was kind of funny just because it's very reminiscent of a moment we had last episode in the half-decent proposal episode, because basically the Simpsons are in their home and you start to hear a rumbling and you know a vehicle is approaching. I legitimately for a moment thought that it was going to be a helicopter again like it was last week, but in this case it is Rainier Wolfcastle's Hummer, which is a direct reference to the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger actually drove a Hummer at this time in California as he's running for governor, mind you. And at one point, they even laughed because he had quoted that he was going to like convert his Hummer to be, I think, eco or some sort of, maybe it was going to be like a hybrid, but he had plans to convert his Hummer to a more fuel efficient method, which is just kind of ridiculous.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's
Maybe
not the only
car.
I mean, we know that Rainier Wolfcastle in general is kind of a parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but there's another direct parody of him in this episode specifically. It's when Marge prepares the German sausages at dinner later. That was actually a reference to the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger also owned a German sausage restaurant in California at this time.
All right, so the deep cuts. Celebrity Slam!
Let's see. Oh, I like when they ask him about the gas mileage of this. He's like, it gets 1 highway, 0 city, and they're impressed by this. But Rainier gives Bart and Greta a ride back to the Wolf Castle. They call it a house, but it's more of a Wolf Castle castle.
I like the fact that when they pull the Hummer up to the outside gate, the Hummer just goes up and over the wall.
Yeah,
it's an RC car.
Yeah, it doesn't open the gate at all. It just drives straight up and over. Which, to be fair, Hummers were marketed that they could like go over any hurdle at the time, and I think they could like drive sideways and whatnot. It is ridiculous.
Maybe he should have got a Canyonero.
Bart points out though that you don't sound as tough as you do in the movies, but Rainier gets very threatening all of a sudden.
He will eventually. Don't worry. If you don't shut your big yap, I will rip off your face and use it as a napkin. Laughing time is over.
Inside the Wolfcastle home, we see that there are giant props from the movie The Incredible Shrinking McBain, which really impresses Bart, especially when he gets to the Q-tip that he used to kill Ross Perot. Oh, wow, everything in your house is just so cool.
What's your house like?
It's okay. My bed is stuffed with hay.
Sorry, you're so funny.
And Bart is, you can tell, awkwardly laughing here because he was not lying. And he's like, yeah. There's a fun joke here that did get the commentary track laughing and joking about them at their own expense, of course. Because we see Bart and Greta settle down to watch Itchy and Scratchy, which Greta points out you don't really know what you haven't really experienced Itchy and Scratchy until you've watched it on DVD, which is TV. Literally at the time they were just more or less plugging their own DVDs in a subtle way is how that worked out. But they did the commentary track from Itchy and Scratchy that came up in picture, and they all laughed about like how that would be really cool, but there's so many of them that none of them would fit. And plus, nobody wants to see what like the writers look like. They're best seen, left in a dark room.
There you go. Accurate. I did enjoy how they watched the Itchy and Scratchy bit and then watched the director's commentary, which is Itchy and Scratchy talking
and
about
still that. In Itchy, and even then though, Itchy still kills Scratchy in the commentary track, just for bonus.
It's always fun.
I like Scratchy was like, we shot this at 4 a.m, and the crew is getting a little cranky. You can never get enough takes for Steven Soderbergh.
Always wanting more rehearsal.
And that's when you get the head cut off, yeah. This is where we switched environments, because instead of Bart going to Greta's, Greta and her father show up at the Simpsons home where they have the German sausages I mentioned earlier, which upsets Lisa because she's like, Bratwurst, Sauerbraten, Donnerblitzen. Isn't there anything that's vegetarian?
Homa, your daughter is a whale-kissing, Dukakis-hugging moon maiden.
It doesn't say here, but it's just, he like, yeah, and like just like laughs it off.
No, then he goes, uh-oh.
Yeah. She's looking at us.
Like one of the funnier parts in the episode, and it's not even in the script.
Not even here. It's frustrating. Yeah, that's true. There's a kind of a sweet moment here because it just shows how innocent Bart is in so many ways. I mean, he's definitely not innocent in the traditional sense, but when it comes to girls, he's still got a lot to learn. And in this case, Greta reaches under the table to hold his hand, and he's at first just like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" But then he's like, "Oh, I got it." And then he challenges her to a thumb war.
Which she goes along with it.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet,
3.
honestly. Yeah, like 10-year-olds dating or whatever is kind of inherently weird in general, but they're doing like a sweet little gesture between the two of them.
And they dating if Bart doesn't know they're dating.
Well, you know what I mean, though. They do point out in the commentary that they completely cheat on this animation because it would be impossible to thumb wrestle in the way that they are set up. Greta is using her left arm and Bart is using his right. And in thumb wrestling, you both need to use the same arm facing each other. But the way they draw it, you don't really notice it. And admittedly, I did not notice it until it was pointed out to me.
You just ruined the scene for me, like for the rest of my life. I will never forget this moment now. That's what this podcast is good at.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't catch that too.
Something that we know that a lot of people really love and enjoy, and we just want to pick it apart and make it so you can't anymore. So at the end of the day, you're just sad.
I love when we get Rainier picking up the piece of pie. Remember when I said I would eat you last? I lied. Which when you said there's another Arnold reference earlier, I thought that's the one you're the blatantly obvious.
The whole character is a reference to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, that's just
what? No way.
Yeah.
When were you going to tell me this?
We once again cut back from the Simpsons' home to the Wolf Castle's home. This whole episode, the second act, is just a ping pong match between two houses. That's what we're watching. We see that the doorbell rings at the Wolf Castle home. Greta answers and is excited to see Bart, but less excited when Milhouse jumps out and is like, "What's up?" Which is, of course, a parody of, at the time, a very popular Bud Light commercial that was taking over pop culture. It was even featured in Scary Movie and several other parody shows and films.
And Miles undersold Milhouse's "What's up?"
Yeah, I mean, it was exaggerated as hell because, again, it's based on a beer commercial. And Greta is like visibly.
Beer ad.
Yeah, they have a 10-year-old selling beer. That seems like honestly, if the beer companies could get away with it, they would.
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
I think somebody would stop that eventually. Greta's visibly disappointed. She's like, "Oh, you brought someone."
Yeah, this is Milhouse. He's my best friend because, well, geographical convenience, really.
Because he got booked in a Butterfinger commercial. Milhouse is wearing a bathing suit, and he's very, very, like, obviously excited to be there. This is the scene. It's not listed out here in the script once again, but he's essentially like, Greta notices he's wearing a swim gear, and she's like, "Do you want to go swimming?"
Do I? I don't remember what he actually says.
He basically is like, you have to watch me dive. And then when they're like, okay, he's like, "Promise." And then we see Bart and Greta hanging out while we just hear like happy swimming noises in the background.
But yes, the point of the story is Greta is visibly upset that Milhouse is there.
For sure.
Shame on you, Bart.
It seems that Bart and Greta's dating has also reconnected Homer and Rainier Wolfcastle. And I say reconnected because it does point out on IMDb, for those that forgot, like your host of this show here, for instance, Homer and Rainier Wolfcastle were actually shown as friends back in season 8 in the episode Mountain of Madness. So they already have an established friendship at this point, but friends drift apart, and I think it could be explained pretty easily that the kids dating has made them, revisit their chumminess, and beer drinking essentially is where they're off to at Moe's Tavern. Only you can pretty quickly tell that the people at the bar at Moe's, all the barflies really, are instantly making Rainier very, very uncomfortable because they're starstruck. It's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And Lenny, I love Lenny here because he's like, "Hey, I've been using that ab roller you endorsed, but I haven't gotten any results."
Right, because you've been using it backwards.
And he literally spins Lenny around to reveal that he has like pecs and abs on his back.
Are you really
Everyone's
Homer's
asking,
friend?
yeah, they're all asking questions. Are you Homer's friend? After they shoot your movies, who gets the leftover film? Is it really true that if I kill you, I become you? Mo asks.
Oh, this looks like a job for my authorized lookalike.
And Rainier Wolfcastle walks out, and immediately another man who looks very similar to him walks in and is like, "Hi, I'm Charlie. I live in this trunk. I live in his trunk."
So, how much you lookalikes make? Because some say I look like Macaulay Culkin.
You get arguably one of the most horrifying shots in Simpsons history as Mo does a close-up to the camera imitation of Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone, where he's slapping his cheeks with the aftershave lotion. I would imagine.
I don't think anybody's seen that scene before, Miles. It's not going to ever be a thing or anything.
I would imagine that cell went for a lot of money. They didn't talk about it at all, but it's something that when they do talk about the cell purchases and the fact that the Simpsons staff gets first dibs and whatnot, I'm always intrigued by like the collectors that collect those cells. And I would be curious to know who has that one and how much they paid for it. There are a lot of benefits that come with dating a movie star's daughter, apparently. And that includes sitting courtside at basketball games, which Bart and Homer and Rainier are all very, very excited about. And you can tell Greta is happy to be there, but way more because Bart's there and way less because there's a game happening, to the point that while Bart and Homer and Rainier Wolfcastle are like actively cheering for the game, Greta's like, "Hey, Bart, my school's having a dance. It's pretty lame, but maybe you could make it fun if we went together?"
Yeah, I guess.
And as this is happening, like the crowd is cheering. Yeah. Homer is also screaming, but he's like, "Ouch! I sat on something sharp."
Shat on something sharp. Oh, that's just Laura Flynn Boyle.
I have a boil on my ass.
Celebrity Slam. It's a thing now.
We cut over to the Principal Skinner's office where he is talking to Willie. Now, don't tell anyone, but I'm trying my stand-up comedy act tonight. If the students find out I'm performing at Floppy's, I'll never live it down.
I won't tell if you put me on the guest list.
All right. +1?
Nay.
All right. Now I'll give you directions starting from the Simpsons house. Which, of course, we see right outside the door that Bart and Milhouse are, in fact, eavesdropping, and Bart is instantly excited and is like, "We are there."
Aren't you supposed to take Greta to the dance tonight?
Yeah, maybe I should keep my promise.
I just hope the audience is kind, because my material is weak, and I have that bladder thing.
That's it. I'm blowing off the dance. This is the biggest thing that's happened to me since chocolate milk.
They've got chocolate milk now?
Milhouse has no idea that they've been serving chocolate milk right beside his white milk in the cafeteria for ages. To be fair, it's malt there, but either way. Yeah. We see at Floppy's, Krusty the Clown is hosting, and I absolutely love his introduction to Principal Skinner. First, when we get there, I think it's Captain McAllister is on stage doing prop comedy, which is always a bummer. But I love when Krusty comes up on stage and introduces Principal Skinner.
All right, let's keep this train wreck moving. Principal Skinner? I know him. He's not funny. Well, enjoy.
I swear I'm bringing somebody up at an open mic one of these days. Like, the biggest rule in open mic comedy is, well, there's many rules, but one of those, like the host, is you bring people up to the stage in the best possible way. You try to put them over. You try to make them look cool. You try to give them their best possible foot forward, because simply put, at most open mics, people are there to hate you. So you're already at an upward battle. So you do your best to bring somebody on strong, and if they suck, you can roast the fuck out of them on the way off stage. But that's a whole different thing. It's hilarious, the idea of just Krusty being like, "This guy sucks. Oh, well, enjoy him."
Well, you know, Miles, I know you and all of your stand-up comic friends will know this answer, because you're all bad comedians. But do you know what a bad comedian's favorite sport is?
What is that, sir?
Cricket.
That's a good one. I like that joke.
I know you guys all know the sport well. It's fine.
We know the sound of it for sure. So I'm going to try some new material real quick, Rich. You can let me know how it goes here. So it's standardized testing time again. Have you ever noticed how the dumb kids fill in the wrong circles?
Seymour.
I seem to have lost my place. Maybe a little improv could raise the roof in here. Would someone name a profession?
Loser principal.
I think I heard California surfer. And he literally just like stands sideways and mimics riding a surfboard. He's still not telling jokes at any point. And we cut out to the crowd where his own mother is there to support him.
You suck, Seymour.
Everyone in the audience is booing except for Milhouse and Bart, who can't boo because they're just laughing too hard at their principal's expense.
How'd they get inside a bar?
They have fake IDs.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that Krusty's establishment is known for carding.
I don't know if Krusty's establishment is very well established.
I don't know if it's known. Yeah, it might be a speakeasy situation. Bart is walking home and gets to his house where Lisa in curlers greets him, by the way. It's a kind of a weird shot. Just interesting, I would say.
It's supposed to be like the angry wife of why were you out late thing.
Yeah, a little bit of mapping there. It's an interesting look in the design you don't see Lisa in very often. But she lets Bart knows that Greta called, and it seems that you told her you were sick.
Lisa, I only lied because it was the easiest way to get what I wanted.
Lisa's upset by this. Bart, this girl is in love with you. Think about it. And he kind of starts going over all these memories that he had, like when they were riding in the SUV. And I think the first one was actually the couch with the Itchy and Scratchy DVD.
Yep.
And she like scooched towards him, the thumb wrestling. He remembers they were playing Scrabble. And when we pan out, we see that all of her words are romantic, like love and,
desire.
Kissing. Yeah. And then the word that he's like playing currently is oblivious.
That's going to be a strong bank there. Like, he's going to get a lot of points off that one.
Yeah, I think there's 2 triple letters on that word, too. Hopefully the V for his sake.
Ooh.
Hey, I didn't lead her on. I always played it light and breezy.
Well, if you don't feel the way Greta does, you've got to tell her before she gets hurt.
All right, I know what to do. I'll dump her like she's never been dumped before. Then we'll just go right back to being friends.
Well, Bart, you really understand women.
Lise, women are easy. State capitals are hard. Homer then walks in the door and he just came home from a cockfight, which Lisa also has things to say about.
And where have you been?
Cockfight.
And Homer looks like upset that he got found out, or that he disappointed Lisa.
We now transition over to an ice cream parlor where Bart and Greta are sitting at the table, and immediately it just starts out with the breakup already happening. You're breaking up with me?
Don't worry, we get that a lot here.
And the acne faced waiter points across to Chief Wiggum and Lou, who are sitting there, and Wiggum's also crying and upset. Lou, you can't leave the force. I can change.
I just think there's more money in private security.
What I'm hearing is I'm too fat. Aren't I? And he's like eating, he's like trying to eat his sundae as this is happening.
He eats like a double scoop sundae in like 3 bites.
It's true. As I mentioned, the second act, as I talked about earlier, the second act was almost exactly 8 minutes. This is the end of it with a double breakup happening in the ice cream parlor. What a sad day. But we've got an entire other act to talk about. And I will say this real quick before we move on. As I'm watching this episode, I'm about here in the story, and I'm thinking to myself, I actually really like this episode. This is kind of a fun story. We've got a cool thing happening with the tension between Bart and Milhouse. is starting to occur. And right here is when I'm like, all right, we've got ourselves a stew going sort of episode that I didn't really have strong memories of, to be honest, because I'm not sure. I don't think I watched this episode till college, if I remember correctly. And it wasn't one that like jumped out at me, but I was very much enjoying the rewatch up until this point. And that is a tease for when that moment's going to change a little bit here in a little while.
I was expecting Bart to be on the run from Rainier Wolfcastle. Like, I expected him to go Arnold Schwarzenegger style, like, action movie.
We could have got some fun Terminator parodies with that. That could have been cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like your idea better with what ended up happening. Again, I don't think it's any surprise that there's a point in this third act where I'm just like, I kind of checked out and it kind of lost me a little bit. And I didn't hate it. There's still funny jokes, but it definitely disappointed me, and it definitely didn't feel like it was connected to the rest of the episode, which I just felt was unnecessary in this case.
It's all Milhouse's fault. Don't worry.
All right, so we kick off Act 3 once again back at Rainier Wolfcastle's house. Greta's still upset. I can't believe he dumped me.
In my movies, this is where I would go berserk.
Dad, this isn't a movie.
Well, let my muscles hug you.
And this is kind of leading up to the story that you were talking about, where you kind of feel like in this moment maybe Rainier Wolfcastle is going to be a little angry at Bart. And the next day, Bart shows up at the Wolfcastle household, rings the doorbell, and greets Greta when she answers the door. Greta, I'm sorry, I didn't handle the breakup well, but you're a sweet kid, and someday you're going to find someone who is...
What's up?
Milhouse? Greta? Well, no one has to draw me a picture.
Oh, but I did.
And Milhouse reveals like a napkin drawing of Milhouse kissing Greta, and Bart's like, Greta, is this how it is?
Yes, except he kissed me in the eye.
And they close the door on Bart. And this is the first point that Bart is regretting his decision. He's now suddenly wondering, maybe I did like Greta after all. And he's kind of reflecting on that with his sister. Oh, I was such an idiot, Lise. Now I'll be alone forever. Why did I break up with her?
Oh, Bart, it's human nature. You only want her because someone else has her.
Prove it, using examples from this room.
All right. Look, Maggie's not playing with this ball in her playpen that we've never seen before this episode and may never see again. But look what happens when I take the ball.
And as soon as Lisa takes the ball from Maggie, Maggie immediately is trying to get it back, even though just a moment earlier she was actually playing with one of the rabbits from Matt Groening's previous comic series, Life in Hell, they point out on IMDb. But as soon as she had the ball taken from her, she immediately cut back from the bunny and was like, I want the ball, I want the ball. And then this gets even funnier because we pan out a little more and see Bart is also saying, give me the ball, give me the ball. So Lisa does exactly what Bart asks, even more so than he may have realized. Bart actually goes full stalker mode in this, and even the commentary track did point out that this gets a little bit creepy. Bart is stalking Greta and Milhouse on their date. He's like wearing a trench coat and a hat, hiding behind a newspaper, going along the beach in a boardwalk covered up in the sand. He even is getting while Milhouse and Greta are getting a caricature drawing done of them on the boardwalk. He's also getting one, but it's him hiding behind the barrel that he's currently actively hiding behind.
It's all right. That's going to be money well wasted.
Yeah, that's true. Bart is finally desperate to the point where he actually calls Greta. A big no-no in these situations. She doesn't pick up at first, but he starts to leave a message. And then when she does pick up, he's like, I knew you were there.
Oh. I'm leaving in 10 minutes. My dad's shooting a movie in Toronto.
You're going to Spain? He did have a hard time with capitals earlier, to be fair. So I'll be real. This right here, this next sequence and beyond is where the episode just breaks down for me, because basically we're going to get a scene where Bart explains his situation to his family. And when he's like, to win Greta back, I have to go to Toronto. 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 I'm sorry. I was speaking Spanish and I accidentally did the congregation.
Apparently, Toronto is feminine in Miles' Spanish brain.
It's a pretty feminine city. Let's be real. It's like the feminine New York. That's what I always hear.
Okay.
No. To win that credit, I have to go to Toronto, is what Bart says. And Homer's just like, Canada? Why should we leave America to visit America Junior? Which is a hilarious joke until they literally decide to go just to chase down their 10-year-old son's first girlfriend. It's just
it's not his first girlfriend.
I mean, that makes it even worse then. Honestly, that's more to my point, is the fact that he's a 10-year-old who is dating another 10-year-old, and in no universe, even the Simpsons universe, would an entire family uproot from their home in America to fly technically out of the country to chase her down. And this just really fundamentally bothered me. It really did.
So out of all the trips they've taken, Homer winning a freaking trip to Africa.
That makes sense to me. No, 100%. They justified that with the animal cracker and the lawsuit. And when they did the lawsuit, I was like, yeah, 100%. If Coca-Cola had a promotion in the 1960s and somebody just found the winning can, Coca-Cola would definitely pay them off if they thought there was a risk of injury or lawsuit. So
no, because the contest would have an end date where if nobody found it, it would be null and void by that point.
Yeah, if they were smart enough to write that into their thing, but if they explained that they did it, I would be on board. But in this case, I just can't get behind it, and it really.
The Simpsons honestly, can go to Japan to look at why Homer got a replica face on.
They paid for that. They literally, the company paid for that. They explained that the company was going to fly them out to explain everything. So again, justified.
They took a cheap.
You're telling me that they're going to pull two kids that are in elementary school out of school for a week, and one of them is Maggie's not in school.
No, I'm talking about Milhouse, Greta, and Bart.
See, like even the Milhouse thing to some extent makes sense because I'm like, you know what? I find it far fetched, but I can accept that Greta was allowed to bring a friend and Milhouse was that friend. I can accept that. I cannot accept that the Simpsons out of their own pocket paid to go to Canada for their 10-year-old son's girlfriend issues. That is fundamentally
if they're in Springfield, Illinois, it's not that far of a trip.
It's still out of the country, regardless of how you look at it. Like there's no justification that's going to satisfy me on
that's
this.
Like
one.
saying when we go to Windstar, we're going out of state. Like I mean,
we are. Man. That is technically accurate. We are.
I know, but it's literally 1 mile over the state border.
You don't think I think about that when I'm carrying?
It takes an hour.
Yes, it's very much a thing that crosses my mind, sir. I'm now breaking the law in two places. That makes it a much bigger deal.
It's funny to me how worked up you're getting over this thing. Especially when like the whole point of the story that gets annoying for me is all the Milhouse stuff. He really irritated me in this episode, and again, like I said at the beginning, he's supposed to, and he's the one that sucked the life out of the party for me in this episode.
I think a big part of this is because, like what you said, with it could have been Rainier Wolfcastle getting angry and chasing down Bart. It could have been any number of things that they were going in this direction with, even Bart just continuing to stalk them in some weird way. But this jump here just really, really bothered me. And I'll also say from the commentary track, they did start talking a lot about the Canada stuff at this point moving forward. When this episode originally aired, it was heavily marketed as the Simpsons go to Canada. Like all of the commercials were the family, like the Simpsons are going to Canada.
I almost made that joke.
I will also say that according to the commentary, Canada themselves were not happy with this episode. They did not really appreciate a lot of the jokes at their expense, especially about the Canadian basketball team during basketball and the Olympics. But almost all of the jokes in this episode were actually written by Joel Cohen and Tim Long, who are in fact both from Toronto and the surrounding area. So it was very personal to them. Most of the jokes were at, Canadia's expense, if you will. Canada. Yeah. They did not like it though, is the thing.
I mean, I never thought I would hear that the Canadians couldn't take a joke, eh?
That's what I'm thinking, or a B joke. They had to have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm. They don't like it when you go after their boy Paul Schaefer, eh?
So yeah, this is where we're at, dude. We have literally just uprooted Greta's dad has a movie in Canada, so Greta goes. That makes sense. Greta invites Milhouse to go along, and his parents agree.
Honestly,
that makes
doesn't
less
make sense.
That makes
it doesn't
less
make sense that Greta goes.
But I'm still on board.
Why couldn't they have somebody taking care of Greta while he was off doing the shoot?
I'm on your side on this one. I'm just trying to go as far as I'm willing to before it just breaks for me. And it's at the point that the Simpsons all uproot to go to Canada themselves. But when they get there at first, we see that Homer is not only going to take them to Canada, more unrealistically, they're going first class. Well, first class bus lines, it turns out.
I just like when they arrive and Marge gets off the bus. It's so clean and bland. I'm home.
Yeah, everybody finds things to like about Canada. Bart notes that Toronto bus station is the birthplace of Paul Schaefer, as you just talked about a moment ago. Homer starts to jaywalk, and when his family is like, it says don't walk, he's like, yeah, but they have free health care here.
Wham!
He gets hit by a car and immediately is like, I'm rich.
Not how that works, but okay.
They do have free health care, though, so there's at least that.
I feel like this is a good publicity thing for Canada. Like, they made it look like a nice place.
Right, like you don't want to go visit like the Sky Dome or the Museum of Draft Dodgers. I know I do.
Exactly.
There's a weird line here. I mean, it's funny, but it's just, it's an odd line. I'm a 10-year-old boy in Toronto. I should be the happiest kid in the world, but I can't stop thinking about Greta.
Oh, you'll win her back, eh? And B, we're closing in 5 minutes. I don't know why you started going almost Scottish-Irish there, but that happens. Nobody knows what Canadians actually sound like, for what it's worth.
Homer has, that's why, that's where Wolfgang Puck is from. That's why we didn't have that one down earlier. But Homer chimes in, would a U.S. dollar change your mind?
American currency? What time would you like your breakfast, sir?
And this is how you can tell that this episode was made in 2002. Yeah. Since we've not had one, but two recessions. We're kind of currently living through one, so, there's a whole thing.
Oh, it's not a recession, Miles, even though it's acting like a prolonged one.
The Simpsons actually go on a tour of a Toronto movie studio backlot. It just so happens to be filming the movie Undercover Nerd, which is, of course, Rainier Wolfcastle's new film.
They knew where to go. They scheduled the trip so they could sneak off of it.
Of course they did. Yes, that's true. Inside the studio, we see a set built to look like a school hallway. Two actors are playing bullies, and it's funny because they are bullying Rainier Wolfcastle, who is dressed as McBain, but disguised as like a traditional bookworm.
Excuse me, which way to the chess club?
And these two bullies are significantly smaller than Rainier Wolfcastle, so it's funny when they're like, what's your name, nerd?
Melvin Eugene Punymeyer.
Well, a big muscle-bound nerd. Just more of you to pick on.
The geek shall inherit the earth. You didn't like this death scene?
I actually do like the death scene. He picks up one of the actors and uses him as a spear to impale the other actor. I also love that they in no way explain the effects on this shot. As far as you know, he just killed a person with another person.
Yep, that's what it looked
I would have actually liked to see if they had set up a practical effect in the Simpsons universe. I think that would have been fun.
See how to do it.
Honestly, that would have been a way better use of a guest appearance by Tom Savini when he's already been on the show previously, and he was one of the ones that were like, they could have used him better. Homer points out
this is the part. This next little tiny scene between Homer and Bart is the part that I feel like is just they didn't know what to do, so they just had Homer lay on the ground and go to sleep.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of awkward.
From the point where they decide to go to Canada, I'm kind of, there's several funny jokes that I still like in the ending, but I'm just very disconnected from it from the rest of the story. And so at this point, I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. A wizard did all of this shit. Whatever. Let's go.
So you heard it here. Miles hates Canada.
Yeah, fucking Canadians.
And anybody that hails from there.
Dude, I'll even count Alaska because let's be real, they're just North Canada.
I've heard it's quite beautiful in Alaska.
Yeah, but the people obviously are trash. I mean, that's why we make them live so far away from the rest of us. And don't even get me started on Hawaii.
Oh. Down to less than 100 listens now.
Listen to me, son. No one loves a quitter. So you go over to Greta and you win her back.
But she might say no.
Oh, I quit. There's no convincing you. I'm going to go take a nap.
Literally lays down on the floor.
Bart decides to approach Greta anyway, but Milhouse is not going to let it be easy.
You're not going to win her back. She's with the house now.
I will say, actually, of all the things in this last act, Milhouse calling himself the house might be my favorite part of it. It's corny as hell, but it's kind of hilarious, especially when it's like, the house always wins, blah, blah, blah. But Milhouse, she's only dating you to get back at me.
My therapist said that's all I could ever hope for. To take off.
That's my
poser.
favorite joke in this whole episode.
In your least favorite act.
The two boys literally start fighting, fisticuffs all the way. They're rolling through the set of Undercover Nerd. They're out going through a taped episode of Curling for Loonies.
Well, we've seen some wild sweeping here today.
Yes, the broom handling has been truly dazzling.
The boys tumble through.
What's this? Two young Yankee Doodle dandies have turned this match into a dandy.
Both our viewers must be thrilled.
Hey, how come they have twice as many as us?
Well, and as you know, in the future, Miles, Homer and Marge will actually join the U.S. Olympic curling team.
Very true. Yeah.
So we'll
from
again.
the commentary, another thing that came about from Tim Long and who was it that I said was the other Canadian? Now I'm blanking on it. Joel Cohen. Joel Cohen and Tim Long both said that in both of their experiences, because curling was a co-ed sport, it was actually considered to be like the one that a lot of like the kids would go for, a lot of the guys would go for, because it gave them an opportunity to flirt with girls. So that explains why Canada is so fucking popular. I'm sorry, curling is so fucking popular in Canada.
There you
go. Bart finally fights his way through Milhouse, which you wouldn't have would have been the boss fight level caliber of difficult that it was.
They just kind of slide on the ice, and she happens to be there.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, girls are really into curling, as we just learned.
Exactly.
Greta, I miss you so much. Please be my girlfriend again.
No.
Yes! The house always wins!
Sorry, Milhouse. I thought Canada would save our relationship, but it only made it worse.
You're breaking up with me? Why?
I guess I was just looking for someone more masculine.
I told you, I don't know how that scrunchie got in my hair.
Sorry, guys, but you two have put me off dating for at least 4 years.
I also really like that joke.
I think I'll just buckle down and co-produce my dad's movie.
Smart, honestly. Pay for college. Mm-hmm. Bart chimes in with one last shot. Need a unit production manager?
It's too late, Bart.
And that's it. Greta walks out of Bart and Milhouse life, and they decide that, since they're both single again, and I love Milhouse pops in here.
I can't believe I have to give her half my stuff. But are we still friends?
Till the next one. And, they figure while in Canada, they might as well do something fun. So we end up seeing them going and playing basketball. And it's with clearly the Canadian Olympic team.
Yep. It's just that easy to join.
And Bart goes up for a layup, misses. And one of the Canadians is like, wow, that was close. You can be the center.
And then we cut back for the final scene of the episode. Back to Miles's old stomping grounds. Floppies. Let's see how Skinner's doing on the stage now.
How come you always run out of tardy slips before you run out of permission slips?
How come you suck?
I lack confidence.
Oh.
And we get like kind of a little like musical cue to Seinfeld on this one. They do like, and then they cut into our normal Simpsons normal Simpsons closing theme, complete with the shh at the end. Only the last sound we hear on this episode is one last Milhouse yelling, "What's up?" And that brings us to the end of our third act and to the end of the episode. The Bart wants what it wants. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad. The basketball game that the Bart and Homer go with Greta and Rainier to, they're giving away free lotion when they're all walking in from this big.
That's a weird joke.
Well, to me, it made me think of COVID, and I was like, oh man, hey, that actually is going to happen in the future.
Hand sanitizer. Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of, we're all going to go to the same hand sanitizer dispenser and use it. Like, cool, whatever. So that just was on my mind during that moment. I think I honestly think it was a fun episode. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. It is a little weird when they displace them all in Canada. It does kind of seem like hey, let's make new backgrounds we haven't had to use before, make it tougher on the animators, even though at this point we're talking about computers. They do lose a little bit of, I feel like, the strong story element at that part. Like the whole Bart and Milhouse thing, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Every part Milhouse is in this episode rubbed me the wrong way. And I know he's supposed to. I get that. That was the whole purpose of his character in this episode. But like, we've been watching this show for so long now that you kind of feel like you want to have things happen where like you kind of feel for Bart and, well, I honestly, that's bad phrasing. You feel for Greta in this episode, and like part of you just kind of wants it to happen, even though they're kids, but like you want them both to be happy. And Milhouse ruining everything just kind of rubs you the wrong way. It's almost like the Zoidberg episode, the next last episode of Futurama, where he finally gets his happiness, right? That's kind of what I wanted a little bit, I guess. I don't know.
That's reasonable. I guess it's okay because this is like literally in the middle of the pack of Simpsons episodes, but that was towards the end. But I do understand what you're saying in terms of the irritation that you feel because of Milhouse in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Job well done, Milhouse. Job well done.
The only other thing I have to say, well, two things. One I just discovered while trying to figure out this first thing, but that was actually the voice of Wolfgang Puck in the episode that I butchered the imitation of earlier. He actually did a guest voice of himself in this episode as well, along with not Drew Barrymore, but Reese Witherspoon. The other notable thing from the IMDb track here is that according to IMDb, and I'm going to be real, I'm having a hard time verifying or getting any additional information on this, but this episode marks the return of Maggie Roswell to The Simpsons after 3 years where she has not been part of the show. Maggie Roswell was the voice of Maude Flanders, but even when they did The Simpsons Alone Again, Natural Diddly, which had happened between the time that she had left the show and this return, she did not do the voice of the flashback or the ghost mod in that episode. Somebody else did an imitation. So the problem I'm having is I cannot for the life of me figure out what characters Maggie Roswell apparently voiced in this episode.
Interesting.
So I'm bringing that up. We'll potentially look into that as we go on into our future episodes. But for now, I think it's time just to say thank you to all of the wonderful people that download and listen to this show. I know I throw a lot of jokes at like the Canadians and the Hawaiians and the Alaskans and just all of your expense.
And the Wolfgangs.
But I love you all so much, and I appreciate you downloading the show. I appreciate you sharing it. I appreciate you telling a friend or whatever. I extra appreciate those that like literally give us money. That's really cool. You can do that on patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Maybe that's why nobody patronizes us, is because I haven't ever said the link correctly because words are hard.
Well, I say that I'm impressed that the Canadians can even figure out how to click a button to get the podcast to play. So I'm proud of you all for doing that, for those of you that listen in Canada. Now, all jesting aside, I'm still upset that the Canadians can't take a joke in this episode. So you can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow me at TheWiz_Kid23. most importantly, you can follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That is DIDDLY.
And make sure you come back again next week, where if you want to join us live, we'll be on vocal.com. That's VOKL.com/bestdarndiddly. And we're going to be reviewing the episode The Lastest Gun in the West.
Yes! The house always wins.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.